Hello and welcome to this YouTube channel. So in the last series we had talked about and learned about the VPC. Now in this series we will be deep dive into the EC2. So whatever the entities relies with the EC2 instances we are going to see in this series. Before that we'll jump on the EC2 instances. What is mean by EC2 instances, how that name got formed. Then we'll be checking about how we can use the EC2 instances to make our life easier, and the last one will be having the demo to create the EC2 instance. Okay, so in this video we are going to check about all these things. So we have heard a lot of word from all of the guys, that is they will see the EC2 instance, right? So I'll just give the quick idea how this name got formed. So EC2 is nothing but Elastic Compute Cloud, and if you just check there, it has come for 2 times, so they mentioned it as an EC2. Now Elastic Compute Cloud is a infrastructure as a service offering by the AWS. When I say infrastructure as a service, what it will give all of the things that we wanted from the application deployment. We can configure the networking, we can configure the storage. Okay, so this is the main purpose of infrastructure as a service. What it will give us the application, where we want to deploy the application, how we want to configure the storage, how we want to configure the networking. Here are the 3 major points about the EC2 instance in a simple terms. When we say the EC2 instance, it will be acting as a flexible cloud servers. If you compared about the cloud computing with the on-premises servers, you will understand that on-premises we will have to purchase one VM. We had to do all of the activities onto the VM. What we can get, we can ask AWS to provide me a server which I can pay on rently basis. So this is just nothing but an EC2 instance. If you say it is having the flexible cloud servers. The second point of about the EC2 instance is we can configure the EC2 instance based on our needs, based on our use case. So if my application maximum configuration, so what I can do, I can use the minimum configuration and I can use it for the application hosting. Okay, so this is, and the third part is that we will be only pay what we use. So here, if you can have the provision to stop the EC2 instance, as I already mentioned, this is a infrastructure as a service, so it has the capability of instance configuration. So this is how we can use the EC2 instance, and we will be only pay what we use. This is nothing but an virtual server where you can deploy your applications, and that applications can be served or used by the clients, where AWS provides this as an infrastructure as a service. Let's see how we can create the EC2 instance. So once we log in to the AWS console, here you will have to search the EC2, and there you'll see the virtual servers in the cloud. So we will be covering all of the things in the next. To configure the EC2 instance, you can go ahead to the instances, and this is what we will get. Now here if you just check, I don't have any running instances in my account. Now what I will do, I will create the instance. To create the instance, you will have to click on the launch instances. Inside the launch instances, we can give the name as, I'm just putting the name, and we, after creating this video, will deploy our application. I will also upload the same video onto the same series. Now once you give the name, there you will see you will have to choose the application and OS images. Whenever we want to configure the virtual servers, consider that we'll have to use the operating system based on our use case. Now in the application that I am going to run over here is that it doesn't require fancy AMI. So what I will do, I will just, for quick start, I can use the Amazon Linux. There are plenty of AMIs which supported for these VMs. Now here you can just see there are Linux, Windows. Based on the architecture, it has multiple AMIs. We can also configure the Mac OS, Red Hat Linux, Ubuntu server, the Microsoft Windows servers. There are plenty of AMIs. There are commonly used AMIs, and you can have the third party AMIs also. Now if you want to create an application based on the DevOps side, inside the DevOps you'll have the Palo Alto. Then if you want to host your router, then you can use this cPanel and all these things. So this is when you click on this choose AMI image, so it is saying that AMI is a template that contains the software configuration. Now as I already mentioned, there are multiple AMIs that you can get and check it depending upon your use case. Now inside this I am just choosing the Amazon Linux 2023 AMI as it is a preferred, and it will be based on my use case. There are I can configure the Mac OS, Ubuntu, Windows. There will be a different way to connect all of these Windows and Mac OS. So I am just selecting the Amazon Linux for now. So once you choose the AMI, that is Amazon Machine Image, the third thing you will have to choose is the instance type. Now what does mean by the instance type? So when we think about let's think about as our laptop or the PC that you are working. So to run the operating system, it required the CPU and the memory, right? So now here in the AWS, they have provided based on our use case, we can choose our instance type selection. Now if I want to use the 2 vCPU and 8 GB RAM of configuration, okay, now I can choose the T4G large. Now if my application needs heavy configurations, that also I can choose it over here, I large, X large. There are plenty of instance types that you can choose it. I'm just choosing as a T2 micro based on my use case, and just to create a sample EC2 instance, I'm just selecting the instance type as a T2 micro. Then it will ask you about the key pair. Here you'll have to remember, so once this key pair got created, it can't be created. So and if it got lost, you can't have the same key pair and you'll not be able to SSH into the instance. There are a couple of other ways that you can log into the instances. I'll also show you in the next videos. So but the safer side, you'll have once you create a key pair. So I'm just selecting the key pair name. I'll just choose the RSA key pair format, and I'll be connecting from my Linux machine, that is which is having the SSH enabled, open SSH enabled. So I'm just going ahead and connecting with the PEM key. So once I click on create a new pair, it will ask me to download it. Once you download it, the next section will be about the network settings. Now here we will have to choose whether my application or EC2 instance deploy my application onto the public subnets, that we can choose. And here if you just see, if you don't want to use the default VPC, what you can do, you can create a separate VPC. If you haven't watched my previous videos, I had created a separate series for the VPC where we can have all of these things. Now I am just selecting the previous VPC, creating this EC2 instance on the default one, and as AWS also mentioned that you should create your own VPC instead of using the default one. I'll just check. Now here it will ask you about the subnet. Where do you want to keep your application or the EC2 instance? I'm just choosing at the public subnet. If you want to have the public IP address to your EC2 instance, you will have to select here as enabled and disable. If you don't want to have the public IP address, just click on the disable. But to get access to have the application hosted on the single IP address, you will have to enable the auto assign public IP address. It will ask you about the security group. Now security group is nothing but it's a firewall rules where we can control the traffic to our EC2 instance. I'm just adding the name. Created on date and it will ask you about the inbound security group rules. So whenever you are creating any of the EC2 instance, make sure that when you create the SSH, and don't try to use at a source type as anywhere, because what it will have, it will open the possibility of DDoS attack and many of attackers to have the access to our EC2 instance. So better, even if you are testing it from your machine for the R&D purpose, anything like that, make sure that you are choosing the my IP as a source IP, source type address. Now if you want, you can have the advanced network configuration based on the, if your EC2 instance wants the secondary IP or the network interface or the primary IP, that you can. Here also you can. Now the next step is to configure the storage. Now when you buy the laptop or a machine, so you also check the configuration of your storage, that is terabyte storage it has, 1 TB, 2 TB and 512 GB, right? The same thing to have the virtual. If you want to give the storage or the additional storage to the EC2 instance, there you can go ahead and give it. As of now I don't require that much, so I'm just using the by default, and you can't, I think it's a default one. When you select the T2 micro, the by default 8 GB will be added. Now if you want to add a new volume, that you can also add as a EBS volume, that we will see on the next videos. As of now we'll just go with the root volume. In the advanced settings, you can add the shutdown will be, if you just shut down, what it will be, stop or terminate, instance auto recovery, hibernate behavior. So here are multiple things, stop protection, placement group. So we'll just inside the summary, if you see here, we have selected as a number of instance 1, and I have chosen this Amazon Linux 2023 AMI, and the virtual server type is T2 micro. I have created a new firewall security group and also assigned a root volume as an 8 GB, and I am just using the free tier. In first year it will include a 750 hours of T2 micro or T3 micro based on the region. Once you verified your configuration, you will have to click on the launch instance. Now it will launch the instance, it will create the security group, so create the root volumes. Here if you see, the state is pending and it will be available within 5 minutes. In the next video we'll see about how we will be able to connect to the EC2 instance and what are the other approaches. We'll see the approaches to connect to the EC2 instance. So this was all about the EC2 instance. Hope you are liking this series. Please do watch and share it with your friends so that they will also get benefit. As I already mentioned, be cloud Premi always. Thank you.